Good evening. It is 5:01, and welcome everybody to the table and those who are sitting here and watching us. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this special meeting is a work session to discuss high school bathrooms. We will take a roll call of our board members. Please indicate your presence by saying present. Director Gregory?
Present.
Director Song?
Present.
Director Clark?
Present.
Vice President Cook?
Present.
And I am present. We are never been so excited to talk about bathrooms. So we call upon Superintendent Vela to kick us off.
Thank you, President Montgomery, members of the board. I'm going to turn it right over to Dr. Behringer to get us started for the evening.
Thank you, Israel. We've got an opportunity this evening to hear from our four comprehensive high school principals in regards to the work that they've been doing, not just recently, but in every day of their role as a high school principal in taking care of the environment of their school. This is just being one of those facets of the many, many, many things they're tasked with every single day. And so we have a great opportunity this evening to have a discussion and a conversation around some of the great work that they're already doing, as well as recognizing the challenges that high school leaders are seeing across the country when it comes to student behavior and student choices. And so with that said, I'd like to turn it over to our executive directors of school and leadership success, both Jim Scheel and Doris Johnson, to get us started.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to gain some clarity, get some context to what's happening in our high schools. The first slide that we have here is to really get some context around it's not just a Kent problem. It is nationwide as to what's happening, and not just high schools, secondary, like middle school, elementary. But we took some snips from some articles from around the country that give us a little bit of a clue as to where things are happening. It's not just one particular place in the country or one region. And again, it's not particular to Washington or Kent, but it's a national issue. And so if you go on Google, like we did, then you'll see that there are many, many more articles than just this. So for our high school principals to know that they're not alone, that around principals are wrestling with this issue and trying to figure out what to do and take hints, take strategies from places where this is occurring or has occurred. So we just wanted to let you know that it's something that we do take seriously and that we have looked into to try to figure out what's applicable to Kent, what's applicable to each school, kind of given their own context and their building layout.
Perfect. We had an opportunity to do some tours with you last week, which was great. Thanks for those of you who were able to fit that into your schedule. I know not everybody can because there's lots of conflicts, but appreciate that opportunity to go hang out and see some high school bathrooms at lunchtime and see the traffic. So that was great. Appreciate that. Before we turn it over to our principals, we wanted to focus on how do you approach this problem or any problem when you're in a school setting, right? We can try to just discipline our way out of it or consequence our way out of it. But if you do that, you're really just dealing with a symptom, right? So we try to get to this root cause analysis, what's really going on. And I think, I know when we were at Kent Lake, I think Heidi spoke to this really passionately around, it's not a bathroom issue. At Kent Lake, it's a little different at each school, right? They went through a process of trying to figure out what's going on and said, really, this is an attendance issue. And if we think about how we get kids in class on time, how we keep kids engaged in learning, how we get them in the room, well, then they're not in the bathroom causing a problem, right? At other schools, it may be a different root cause, but that's really an important part of this, is it's not a one-size-fit-all approach. Every school is different. Sometimes it's a difference from one school year to the next, right? You implement your policies this year, and you realize that well, last year's policies aren't working with this year's group of kids, and so we have to change. So it's constantly going back to a root cause analysis, thinking about what is this a symptom of, what's really going on, talking to kids, talking to teachers, observing with your own eyes, and then coming up with a plan, right? Putting a plan in place, monitoring that plan. We call it a plan, do, study, act, or plan, do, study, adjust, right? That we use for academics, we use for discipline, we use for any sort of problem that we have or issue that we have in a school, to think about what's a plan that we can come up with based on what we're seeing, and then monitoring and adjusting that plan as you go. And I think our principals will be able to speak to sort of the successes that they've had, and honestly, the ongoing challenges that we have, again, everywhere. This isn't new. It's been 4 years since I've been a principal, but for the 11 years that I was a principal in this district, it was also a challenge. Some years more than others with the advent of TikTok and social media and people having challenges. I forget, I sent a letter out to parents one year about how many thousands of dollars I had spent replacing plastic. It's amazing how much those plastic paper towel dispensers cost. They're really expensive. And when you're constantly ripping them off the walls, because that's what TikTok says you should do 5 or 6 years ago, you end up spending a big chunk of your building budget on replacing paper towel dispensers, right? That sort of went away, and then it merged to something else. So we have our root cause analysis, we have our plan, do, study, act cycles, and that's really the approach that our building leaders take as they address this issue. And so we kind of have 3 categories of solutions, and then we're going to let our principals kind of share where they are. It kind of falls into 3 buckets. We talked about, mentioned one school thinking about it's really a focus on attendance. How do we keep kids in class? How do we get kids in class? Everyone's focused on attendance. Not everyone thinks that attendance is the issue of what's going on in bathrooms. Certainly thinking about supervision and visibility. Where do we place our adults? How many adults do we have to place around? What does that active supervision look like and sound like and feel like? What's visibility look like? How do we engage kids in that process? I think at one school they talked about, kids are the ones who are constantly coming up to us and saying, hey, you need to go down the hall, right? Like, I know you just left, but as soon as you left, such and such is going on down the hallway. Great, so now we can go down the hallway and adjust that. And I think we had in our visit some look at some of the technology that we use. I think Director Cook had a specific question, I think, about technology and some of the technology that we use with Securely Pass or eHall Pass at our secondary schools that give us some control over who goes where and who's leaving classrooms and how many people at a time. So those are kind of our 3 buckets, and we're going to turn it over. I'm not sure who wants to maybe attack their school's conditions first, but we're going to turn it over to our principals who are living this on the ground and let them share.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Radford, principal of Meridian High School. Thinking about campus supervision, I think about the size of our campuses, 30 plus acres, 15 to 1,600 kids there every day, 120 to 130 staff members. They're really large campuses for us to manage. One of the key things for us in terms of management is being aware of what the challenges are. And so we have feedback systems from staff and from students to be able to share with us where some of the hot spots are. Now, many times there are places on our campus that we're fully aware of that there is a hot spot because we're having to support kids who are doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing in these places. Other students are telling us, like, hey, this is happening in a location. And when we are working with kids, one-on-one, they will tell us privately, hey, something's going to go down at this time today, and this is where it's going to be, and give us opportunities to intervene. But getting that information from our kids and from our staff members, so just listening to the people within our school community is an important step. Another important step for us is to respond. And so we spend a significant amount of time responding to needs. So when kids are saying there's a need or staff are saying there's a need, there are several staff members that will report to check out what's going on, find out which kids need help, whether it's a fight situation or just some kind of student conflict. When our staff call for help, there could be 6 to 8 people who respond. Right? So we are very proactive in that response so that our staff feel like there are people coming to help with that situation, and our students also see that we are there to help with that situation. On my mind as a principal, like helping our kids through these tough times, consistency of practice, clarity of our communication with them is essential. And having a structure in place that everybody knows this is how we do things at our school, this is how we're going to respond. And then having supports for our kids when they're not able to meet those expectations. Those are key things for us. And so we also have a lot of staff time spent on helping kids through their challenges, whether they're drug-related or conflict-related. There's a lot of staff, whether they're a dean of students or a safety officer or a counselor, assistant principal, a lot of people that are working directly one-on-one with our kids. And so I'd like us to not lose sight of the fact that we are staffed at our school with 4 administrators, 2 safety officers, and a dean of students, and to essentially manage a 30-plus acre campus with 1,600 kids. And so helping our kids is our paramount duty, right? The safety of our kids is important. And so we will try to be creative in how we use the staffing that we have and placing people in strategic areas so that people intentionally placed in key areas of campus so that we're able to provide the support as needed for our kids.
Can I jump in? So good afternoon. I am Samantha Ketover. I'm the principal of Kentwood. And it's wonderful to see all of you and partner with you on tackling this issue, which is interconnected, as Principal Radford is saying, to so many other items and aspects within a school. The first thing that I want to recognize and celebrate is I feel that we are here because Kentwood students use their voice. And so our civics teachers support civic engagement projects, and our students choose whether or not they want to come to a board meeting, whether or not they want to go to a city council meeting, whether or not they want to write a letter. The bottom line, though, is that they engage, and that civic engagement is something that they need to practice. And so one of the things that I want to acknowledge is that there's actually been a process behind that and supporting that in trying to have them feel that they can show up and really voice what their concerns are in the best possible way. Okay, so we have had Dr. Behringer visit our building and work with our civics teachers and really encourage how our students can show up and express themselves and really make an impact. And I think that being here is representative of that impact, and I want to celebrate that. So having said that, bathrooms most definitely are something that Kentwood students have talked about my entire tenure at the school. There have been different aspects of the conversation about bathrooms. We have gotten a lot of feedback from both staff and students about how they experience bathrooms. And then we have also adjusted our response to what's going on in bathrooms based on what we are seeing at the school. Another thing that I really would like to call out and celebrate is we would not be able to do that without the partnership of other teams within the district. So for example, when I first arrived at Kentwood as the principal, we had basically open bathrooms. There was no door, there was just an opening to pretty much every single bathroom in the main building. And one of our curiosities was, well, there are times when maybe we need to secure this space. and we need to respond to something that has happened in the bathroom. Like, for example, devious licks, the TikTok phenomenon from several years ago. Yeah, there are some times when we needed to secure the bathroom, repair it, and then open it up again. We would not have been able to get to a solution without partnering with our maintenance and facilities team. And so I really do want to call out the fact that, one of our responses was to have a system where we can pretty much say, okay, this bathroom is closed so we can repair it, or this bathroom is open because there are no issues. Again, that's more so in the main building. In our new building, the annex, there are doors that can be secured, okay? We also have responded to keeping bathrooms open and closed based on what we have seen and concerns about safety. So for the board members who came to visit and partners at the district who came to visit, one of the things that we shared with you is that there is one set of bathrooms which is closed pretty much at all times. The only exception is if there is an event going on in the gym. So we have some gym foyer bathrooms that are closed because we do not feel, similar to what Principal Radford was talking about, that we can adequately supervise those bathrooms. And we had had issues occurring in those bathrooms. And so in response to that safety concern, in partnership with getting the gates up, those bathrooms are closed. Now, what's an alternative? The locker rooms, okay, as well as the other bathrooms elsewhere in the building. So some of this has most definitely been taking a look at how can we respond to things that are going on in bathrooms and secure access, make sure that if we are closing off, for example, the gym foyer bathrooms, we're able to concentrate on other bathrooms and other bathroom supervision. And then also, I really do need to call out too, that our district plumber, mad respect for our district plumber, to be responding to over 40 buildings and all of the concerns in plumbing, absolutely phenomenal. I shared with the board members that, students sometimes will experiment with other things going down the toilet. And when that happens and there is something we can't resolve, we're able to have someone respond. And if that district plumber is, to the point where that person cannot be there in a timely manner, we have had folks who have been contracted to come in. So again, I really do want to highlight the partnership with maintenance of facilities, absolutely critical. So one of the things that we have looked at is the physical nature of things, like I'm describing. What's going on in the physical space? How can we secure the physical space? What is our supervision of the physical space? However, we also recognize at Kentwood that much like Principal Maurer is sharing, that this is an issue that interrelates to things like whether or not students feel a sense of belonging in the school, whether or not they feel a sense of belonging in their classrooms, whether or not they feel a sense of belongings in the hallways. I could go on and on. That sense of belonging, I firmly believe, and research would also back this up, that a sense of belonging in many cases precedes academic achievement. And if there's a sense of belonging gap, that is significant and it needs to be addressed. So where am I going with that? How does that relate to bathrooms? Well, similar to what Principal Maurer is saying, we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to increase the students' sense of belonging, partner with them to understand how we can improve sense of belonging, support a higher sense of belonging, look at attendance best practices. Just a little bit on that. We have had a couple of teams who have looked at the OSPI best practices around attendance and what are the practices that are correlated with positive improvements in attendance. Again, I think many of those strategies directly relate to a student's sense of belonging. Whether or not a student is greeted as they enter the door matters. Whether or not a student is acknowledged as they're coming in late and acknowledged in more of a positive way matters. Whether or not students are engaged in collaborative activities that focus on active learning matters. All of these things are, and I could go on and on, like literally I could go on and on. I'm a talker, okay? So there are all of these different aspects that are going to influence a student's sense of belonging, which is going to be about this. That tree, I very much see this as it's part of the picture. I think that that is where I would begin. This most definitely, I got to tell you, when I went to principal school, we didn't have a class on bathrooms. Or parking lots, okay? Or, many of the things that really are also, interconnected with the learning environment and the culture of our school. The thing that I appreciate is that I have people who I can lean into as fellow leaders to talk about the things that we're seeing on our campuses, find out if this is something each other, how can we support each other. I'm just incredibly thankful for being able to lean in. I'm incredibly thankful for being able to thought partner with folks at the districts, although I was not around at that time. I could see that this would be an ongoing issue, but I think that what the key is going to be is that we give it the appropriate attention.
Good evening, I'm Krista Ernst, principal at Kentridge High School. I will only lightly touch on the things that the others have said because it's very, have 10 sets of bathrooms across our campus, some of which are right next door to each other, male and female, some of which are quite a distance away from one another. And so we've had to really prioritize where do we think the best supervision can occur while also providing our students with access to restrooms in a timely fashion. Like Samantha said, we have had a tremendous that we talked about in hearing from students, in talking to teachers, that to the outside is open to allow greater access that we needed to make sure that those doors could be secured open. We have also had issues with plumbing for a variety of reasons, and when a district plumber was not available to our problem, and so we had to have that bathroom locked off. What I don't think has been mentioned is we seem to have a weather-dependent bathroom issue. I would say bathroom issues are more concentrated when it's not so nice outside, right? And when the weather is better, which is not most of our school year, right? Those issues tend to, at least at Kentridge, tend to find themselves not happening as frequently. And I think that definitely points to what Dr. Ketover was saying and what Principal Maurer is going to talk about is that they can feel some sort of a connection. And when the weather gets nicer, they don't leave usually, at least at Kentridge. There's not a whole lot. You can't really go very far unless you have we have a very large, a couple of fields L-shaping our campus. There's a wooded area out back, right? And so that issue of kids hanging out in the bathroom decreases when the weather gets nicer because they would actually rather stand outside somewhere as opposed to standing inside the restroom. And the one thing that I think is consistent for all of us that I don't think has been specifically stated is we're essentially playing a game of whack-a-mole with student bathroom issues, right? We're not literally whacking them, right? But we say, here's a hot spot, right? And so we divert, they're here, we'll wander over there. And that's the reality of it. But it takes a lot to have a practice that is energy, but we all see the value of it. And probably for me, the thing that has been the most helpful in really, really trying to keep our strategies when they forget about the one that we tried before, but it is a constantly evolving process. And it is something that nobody is pushing to the wayside. We are all very aware of what's happening in our buildings, and we are all constantly working to keep as much on pace with our students and kind of keeping them on their toes.
Principal at Kent, like I'm the closer. When we looked at the bathroom, clear when we started to dig into this student, so we talked about it with our parents and our staff, it was clear that our issue is an attendance issue. And then when you dig into our data and you realize that 65% of our students are chronically absent, and you look at the attendance rates, and you start to watch our students come off our 34 buses and then walk through the school and then walk out the front door, you go, we have a problem. And It was with that data and looking at that data as a school, the issue of attendance. And here's some of the things that we did. We had some places that we man at specific time school day. We have hallways that we are in and out of those bathrooms. And the school are then shut for instructional time. Sensors, and there are plenty of bathroom open for our students to be able to access, and it's strategic, and we have another layer of supervision. So at Kent Lake, we have an administrator or a member of our administrative team, and for me, my admin team are my assistant principals, my safety officers, and my dean of students. One of us is assigned for float during each period of the day. During that time, we are everywhere. We are in the stairwells. We are in and out of the bathrooms. We are in the cubbies where students like to hide. Because remember, at Kent Lake, there's no place to go. Once you're off that bus, the only place you can do is walk down to the Lake Sawyer store. Otherwise, you're hiding in the school to try to skip. So we know all those places now. Sometimes we'll put out on the radio, I'm going hiking, and that means you're going to the woods to sweep people back into school. But we're finding our students, and then what are we doing? We're talking to them. How you doing? What's going on? You're not in class. Why is that? We're getting to know them. And we're walking them back to class, putting them back in the room, and making sure that they're learning. We're sweeping those bathrooms. We're making sure that kids are not hanging out in those restrooms. And the kids that are hanging out in those restrooms, we start to find our regulars. And then we're talking to them, and we're getting to know them, and we're understanding why. What's going on? The beauty of the e-hall pass system that we have implemented is that it's an electronic hall pass system. I have it on my phone, and I can see exactly who's supposed to be out in the hallways just by looking on my phone. And I can say, my friend here, you're not on the system, you're not on my phone. Why aren't you in class, right? Or I can also say, dude, you're yellow, you've been out of class for 20 minutes. Are we taking the scenic route? Are we lost? Do I need to help you find your teacher? I can get you back there. The other amazing thing is I can pull up their attendance on my phone right there and say, we've been missing a lot of class. Let's take a look at your grades. Your grades aren't looking so good right now either. You've skipped 3 classes today. Let's call your mom right now on the spot. I can't tell you how many phone calls I've had to parents in the hallway, talking to parents, connecting, finding out what's going on, really dealing with what the root of the issue is. Why is a student not in class? Because there's a reason. There's a purpose. And through this whole process, our admin team is building relationships with students. We know their name. We know what their schedules are for a lot of them now. I don't even have to look it up. But we know why. And we're building a sense of belonging. Our kids are noticed. They're not just a number. They're not forgotten. We see them. And so through this float process, through this supervision process, we are starting to build what my team here has alluded to, which is that sense of belonging, that sense of purpose. There's other things that we're doing to build that sense of belonging and purpose as well. For example, we have a position which is a front entry receptionist, and we have the most amazing individual who speaks multiple language, who is our new face of Kent Lake. And Zainab is the person who greets every person who comes in the front door. She sits at that front door. She's got a buzzer. She lets people in. And all of our students have to go in the front door to get in. And she knows our regulars who are tardy. How you doing? I'm so glad you're here today. Tell me a little bit more about, what happened this morning and why we're late. We'll get to where they're supposed to be. She has a radio. She can let us know, hey, to the float person. Again, these are the relationships. These are the systems that are in place to ensure that our students are getting to where they need to be. Because what is our problem with the bathrooms? Our problem with the bathrooms is that our students were not in class where they needed to be. For us, our underlying root issue for our bathrooms was attendance. Now, there's still bathroom issues, and so there are other strategies that we're using to address that. One of our teachers was sharing with those of you that were able to attend that one of the most brilliant moves that we made was we moved the mirrors out of the bathroom. move them into the hallways. I have learned more about makeup. I mean, I have a new foundation color now because I have talked to the girls in the hallway about makeup because the mirrors are now in the hallways. And alleviating crowding issues in the bathrooms, and it's no longer a place that you hang out. We posted expectations in multiple languages in the bathroom, so it's really clear. This is what the purpose of the bathroom is. This is how we use it. This is not where you have lunch. That is not cool. It's disgusting. But our kids understand that and are beginning to respect that. There are times, though, like this team has talked about, things come in cycles. There are times that we have to have a stronger presence. I am not beyond rolling my rolling desk into the women's restroom and answering emails if that's what it takes to send a message that, listen, we're going to be appropriate in these bathrooms. And if that means I have to stand here and answer my darn emails in the bathroom, then that's what we're going to do. But the kids they've figured that out, right? That we're serious, that you're going to be appropriate in the bathrooms. And I would say, for the most part, we're starting to see that we really are not having issues in the bathroom. Are we perfect? No, we're not. I mean, we have not solved the bathroom issue. But for the most part, it's appropriate behavior in the bathrooms. We're not seeing the same level of vandalism. We're not seeing the rubber band balls shoved down the toilets and things broken off. I did have to shut one bathroom down this week. They made a poor decision. We'll get it fixed. We'll remind the students that that's not how we behave, and then we'll try it again. I want to echo what Sam fashion pass, and I can share it with our families. I'll put it in our newsletters. I can tell a parent when they come in for a meeting, do you know that this is how many minutes your student has lost of instructional time because this is how much time they've been in the hallway? And parents can't believe that. I can set things like polarity partners so that two students who just happen to be going to the bathroom every day at the same time no longer have that ability. That I can also put a list out to staff and say, here are our top 10 individuals or our top 20 individuals who are going to the bathroom or getting passes, so that teachers can use that as a conversation starter with students. Not to deny them privileges of going to the bathroom, but to say, hey, I see that you're using and going to the bathroom an awful lot. Are you okay? Is there something going on? I just see that you're going every class period and sometimes multiple times. I want to make sure you're okay. But then the kids know, like, dang, I'm caught. But on other times, we've caught some medical issues as well. I mean, so there's a lot of ways that we can use this data. Other ways that tech has supported us, they've put an additional doorbell in our ASB hallway and a camera that has helped us keep that secure, that Zainab in our front entryway can now have a different way of monitoring another unsecured doorway and buzz people in. So I also want to do a shout out to our IT and to Tim Kovich and his team that does the camera system that has supported us in that way.
All right, great. The last piece of technology I just wanted to highlight really quick before we move to your questions, Heidi, I think, mentioned it just really quickly, is the pilot of the vape sensors and the environmental sensors that are in. And I forget, I know Kent, you've got them. Does anybody else? Wasn't there one other school, or is it just you?
Meeker, middle school.
Meeker has them as well. And so those, don't solve the problem. There's a little bit of a delay by the time you get the notice on your phone. Right, you get to the bathroom, there's of course 6 kids in there, so you don't know necessarily who is causing the problem, but it's just another tool that we have to let us know, and it could be, something else. Yep, there's false, not a panacea, but just another piece to kind of help us monitor what's going out. We have of the team as we go forward.
Absolutely. Director Clark.
Krista, you had an incident outside the main building before a sporting event, but you had cameras that were able to actually capture on the way out. So my question to all of you, I know, obviously you don't need 20 more cameras, that's the lesson. Somebody would have to look at the screens. But my question is, if it were possible, it's the classrooms that are farthest removed that present a bigger problem. And were we to, if it were doable, create a system where you could have a temporary camera that could be located and then moved over time as necessary so that your public safety people wouldn't be staring at the screen, but the spot checks would be doable without increasing another 20 cameras. So, any thoughts?
I can too. Heidi, is it okay?
You would go ahead.
So one of the things that I would say is that in collaboration with school safety, we actually have analyzed over time, since joining the school, the camera coverage that we have. We are consistently responding and adding cameras that would be helpful in terms of providing coverage and angles. So that has happened interior and exterior. When I hear mobile camera, I think, who's going to be moving that camera? And so that's where my brain went first thing, right? So I wanted to just throw that out there right off the bat. What I would prefer is when we are tackling this issue that yes, there's a technology aspect to it. There are opportunities, staff consistently, the securely pass or the hall pass. But again, as changer, if we had people in the hallways acting as, bathroom and hall, do that, I think there are a lot of different ways that you could potentially do that. Would you be recruiting and partnering with, I've had parents on the PTSA who have asked, do you need me to come in and stand in a bathroom? So are you recruiting partners from your community, your parents, and that, you have a bathroom and hallway monitor? There are lots of opportunities. Look, the power of a human being.
If I can. Just a clarification on one part, and that's the mobile camera was a wireless camera, and you're not there, but ignoring that. So here's an oddball question relating back to manpower, though. At the community college, one of the things that's doable is you can solve certain things like mentoring and study guides and whatnot through work-study plans. Because at the high school, you have older students that aren't on campus all day anyway. So the potential, if we could create something like that, might create another observation possibility.
Other questions? Yep.
So one question I had is, what's the percentage of students that we're having difficulty with here? Are we talking like 1% of the student body, 20% of the student body? I highly doubt it's that, but what is that ratio?
So another shout out, our data dashboards are incredibly impressive. One of the things that is possible with our data dashboards is to look at discipline incidence rates. You can look at discipline incident rates over time. You can disaggregate those discipline incidents by a number of different factors, including how students identify, are they served by different programs, et cetera. One of the things that I think was really powerful that was added to the data dashboard this year was the percentage of each identification area of students that were not involved in discipline. And flipping that and talking about, are we talking about 2% of this particular group of students who identify in a particular way, or are we talking about 5%? and who are those individuals that we're talking about, and what are our wraparound plans. So to answer your question, for us, it really depends upon how you're disaggregating the data, what lens you're looking through. But many times I will say, and again, this isn't an exact number, but I feel like sometimes it's the story of the 2%. It's the story of the 3%. It's the story of the 4%. There are many, many, many people, students, community members who are making awesome decisions. So I hope that addresses your question.
Yeah, I guess, my concern is that, if we're spending this much time and effort, and obviously your time as principals going out and our other administrators that are there, and I just don't, how do we do this without having to spend all that money for the 1-2%, right? That to me seems like an inefficient use of money in that way. And it seems like there should be some way to work with them without having to take away, because anything that we take from our staff to go and put towards this means less availability of those same staff to go and help the rest of the 99% of students that are there. And so my concern is that we're spending that much effort and time and everything and money towards something that's such a relatively small problem in that way. And I don't know what the answer is to resolve that, obviously, but it seems like a lot of efforts going towards this. And I get that, it is a problem that we have students that aren't in class when they should be. But when we have 98% of our students that are in class and they are doing what they're wanting or what they're supposed to be doing, and then they are having difficulty using the restrooms, and it's making them feel like they aren't important because we're taking care of that 1-2%, but that 98% is doing a great job. And they're like, why do I have to put up with this bathroom nonsense? Why do I have to walk across a school to go use the bathroom? Why do I have to try and figure things out during passing period instead of just being able to use the restroom like any other, average citizen, right? And that's, I guess, my concern is I don't want to drive away those students that are doing everything right by us implementing things that are making them feel like they're not at home, if that makes sense.
I can respond to that. So I would say I don't think that there is a way, right? I think this is it's a tier problem, and any system, any issue that you have to spend more time and resources on the students in the highest tier, because they clearly need something more than we can just provide. That's just sort of the blanket thing that supports all students. And I think what Heidi referred to before is that approach of having a more humanistic approach to say, we need to find out who you are, how we can support you. It's one of those things that you can't do quickly and you can't often do cheaply, because it does take a lot of people power to make those connections, and it doesn't, oftentimes you don't see the results until far enough down the road that you're sometimes pulling your hair out because you're like, oh my gosh, I've had this conversation with this kid, and then they make this choice, and there's a flip, and you never know when that's going to happen. And I think what we have been trying to do is balance that, right? Because we have to have a lot of these things are tier 1 supports, right? We ask all kids to have passes to leave class, right? That's not just for kids who are wandering the halls or just for kids who are in the bathroom. It is something that helps us manage this space. And so if we take away some of these things that are tier 1 approaches, then we increase the number of students that potentially are causing concerns, and then that elevates the problem, and your culture and your climate goes downhill really quickly, right? And so it is kind of a maintenance thing to try to keep things as small and contained as possible. And I would much rather spend some resources trying to manage and work out how to make a small group of students feel connected and get the support that they need than to put that to somewhere else and then all of a sudden have an issue of 10% of our kids because they're like, oh, there are no rules, right? And that is part of the thing with tier 1 supports, right? We think that they don't matter until they're gone. And then once they're gone, you're like, well, oh my goodness, what happened? And you're like, oh, because we had that thing in place that was a deterrent for most of the kids. And I think that's the balance, is figuring out where are our tier 1 supports making our students who are generally doing what they need to feel like they're supported, as opposed to feeling like they're being punished. And I will say most of the things that we have put into place at Kentridge, and I would venture to say it's probably similar at the other schools, are things that kids say, can we do this thing because we're tired of going into the bathroom and having to wait because kids are just hanging out in the stalls, or kids are being loud, or kids are doing this, and I don't want to go into that bathroom. And so a lot, in most cases, these are things that our students are saying make them feel safe. And it's when those things start to make them not feel safe that we have to figure out how can we tweak them. But I honestly don't think that there's a way to do the work that we need to in a way that takes resources away, because usually those students need more resources.
I guess mine is just more validation. I really appreciated all of the stories and efforts that you guys have shared today. And for me, I think the overarching takeaway was more so this individualized cultures that exist within each campus that you guys have. And I couldn't agree more. I think this issue is something that's occurred since the beginning of time. When I was in high school, it was an issue. And so it sounds like this is just one of those systems and cultures that perpetuate throughout generations. And so, yeah, I'm really fascinated to hear more, and hopefully we can get more updates on that data. I love the polarity one, for example. I think that's astounding to be able to capture that micro level of data within your schools. So, yeah, hopefully we can get another update on this.
Dr. Gregory? Mine's more of a comment. I appreciate you hosting me, coming through your school and looking at bathrooms. It was fun. It was an interesting, I think one of the things I want people to understand is the size, right? We forget how large the buildings are. We forget how large these campuses are and how students are going from one end of campus to another. And I think being able to come and see that was very helpful to go, okay, I get why we need more people, right? We need more resources. And I do think it's something to explore if we could have another body, right? Some other body, so we don't have our administrative staff roaming the hallways for bathrooms. I understand it's important to connect with kids, and you can do that once a day, but not every hour of the day. I think there's got to be some balance that we can work with. And we generated a lot of ideas when we were walking around talking about it. So I'm really excited about that. But I'm also excited that Kentwood's going to move the mirrors out of the bathroom into the hallway. We got a commitment to do that. I'm looking over there, right there.
And we also got a commitment to take away the outlets
Yes,
to deter personal grooming.
yes.
Yes, I'm so excited about that as well. I don't think our students necessarily will be excited, but I am ridiculously excited.
And then I do want to, I do need to go back out to Kent Lake. I think I need, I want my foundation checked. Maybe I need to go do that. It could be like a thing we could go do and find out.
Are they doing color palettes there?
Yeah, are they doing color palettes? I'm worried that I'm missing out here.
I know just which mirror to stand next to. I'll let you know.
Perfect. I appreciate that this problem has been going on for quite some time. I also, and I love how you say this and celebrate, when people come and are, and say that this is a problem that's affecting them, and we have parents writing in that, my kid has a UTI and they can't pee because they have to go to the other side of the school or whatever that is, right? Like we hear these things, and so I feel like we need to do something more than just admire the problem. And not saying that that's what's happening, but there must be a disconnect from what we're doing and what our students feel like is happening. And so I think what comes down to partly is the communication. And how are we communicating all of these things that are happening so that our students know that we hear you and this is what we're doing? Is it the answer? No. But maybe that also might cause a little bit of well, if the administration's doing this, then maybe I can do my part too. I mean, it'd be nice, right? We can hope. But I think a lot of things come down to just communication, and we're putting this out there, and that it's important enough that we hear it. Vaping was not a thing when I was in high school, and the smell and that compared to cigarettes or marijuana is just different. And so We have a different problem with vaping than we did with kids in the back of Kentridge going into the woods and smoking, right? Like, it just is different. And so I just hope that we can, if we're doing a lot, then we should be talking a lot about what that is. I loved hearing what are our kids saying that we should do, and I would love to hear us celebrate as much as them complaining about the problem. Here's what they said we should do, and this is what we tried. I did hear, sorry, I'm going through my list because I'm last, that the bathrooms just in themselves make a secluded area. And we had our students come and speak about feeling safe at school and the environmental, I want to say goal 3, about the environmental safety of our schools and that are we providing those safe areas where kids feel that they can be, and yeah, it might not be in class, but at least it's keeping another kid from, not keeping another kid from being able to pee. And so do we have that? And is it what we want? No, we want kids in class every day. But if they're going to be out of class anyway, can we at least have it in an area where they're somewhat contained? I don't know, thinking outside, is there something different? And we talked about swiping badges. I don't know how that helps. I mean, people swipe for other people all the time and what that looks like. I don't know about that idea, but passing times. If we're using passing periods to use the bathroom, can we make our passing periods longer? So then they're not using the bathroom during class time and they're doing it, especially if we have 13 acres that we're walking across to get to. And then the last was a question I'll end with is, I heard voluntary for teachers to be in the hallways. Is that not something that is contractually during their time as the passing times and we can't dictate where teachers are, like being in the hallway to say hi or whatever that is? I have a question on that, I don't know.
So having spent almost 10 years in the classroom and coming from a background of a science teacher, just speaking myself when I was in the classroom, I made every effort to be in the hallway. There were some times when, you're transitioning from one period, resetting a lab, let's say, getting to the next period, that it was not possible to be in the hallway. So I think that what I've been grappling with is, and again, this is more of the personal leadership journey, like what are those things that are just absolute expectations, and how can we help people meet those absolute expectations as much as possible? And if they're not meeting those expectations, we find out why. So I think that, I feel comfortable encouraging my staff to have a greeting routine. Mm-hmm. What is a greeting routine that works for you? And as much as possible, be in the hallways. But I also know the day-to-day life of a teacher is very busy, and you're not always able to be right there.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there's changes with every day, but I'm also guessing that there's a few teachers that you can probably think of that probably are never outside of their classroom, right?
Well, and that's what I think, that's where, again, within our building and within, my journey with leadership, it's, looking at, again, what are those things that are loose and tight, for lack of a better way to say,
Fair.
And how are we supporting one another in maintaining those things, and how are we responding when we need to have accountability. It's an ongoing journey, at least for me.
Over many years. Okay, it is 6:01. Oh, yep.
I just
And
want
we're
to
gonna
take
talk-
10 seconds
Yeah.
to thank board and also our 4 high school principals. Thank you for taking the time. You can imagine their schedules in the springtime with graduations coming around the corner. And then I also want to thank not only the 4 principals here, but those principals you didn't hear from. You heard some ideas, examples, some things they're grappling with that are going on in all of our schools in different ways. So I wanted to say thank you for representing your team and yourselves. Appreciate it.
Again, echo that. I know it is 6:02. We thank you for your time. Thank you for the administration and the time that was also in your schools to look through that. So thank you very much. We appreciate it and this ongoing issue. It is 6:02, and we are adjourned for an executive session for 30 minutes. The purpose of the executive session is to discuss the performance of a public employee, potential litigation, and the legal and/or financial risks of a course of action. We will see you back here at 6:30. Good evening. It is 6:30, and our executive session adjourned at 6:27 p.m. We are now calling this regular meeting to order. I did want to acknowledge that we recognize that we were experiencing live stream difficulties during the preceding work session. We believe that the live stream is properly functioning now. In the event that we experience additional disruption, please note that the complete recording of tonight's events and meetings will be uploaded to our channel on YouTube tomorrow. As we move into our regular meeting, we will start with attendance. At this time, I'll take roll call. Please indicate your presence by saying present. Director Gregory?
Present.
Director Song?
Present.
Director Clark?
Present.
Vice President Cook?
Present.
And I am present. If you can join me by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. This is a meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We welcome the public's participation in the board meeting and thank those of you who have come to this meeting and those who are viewing via our live stream, which is hopefully working. The purpose of the board meeting is for the board to conduct its business in public. During the meeting, the board will listen to but not respond to comments from visitors. Whether made verbally in person, verbally on video, or written, comments are limited to a total of one per person per regular board meeting. One additional comment per person may be submitted for a public hearing topic if there is a public hearing on the agenda. All forms of public comment are subject to Chapter 4256 RCW Public Records Act. The public may comment at regular board meetings in a manner that is authorized by state law. All comments must adhere to Policy 1420 and Procedure 1420P. If you wish to make a comment to the board, comments forms are available for completion prior to the meeting and must be turned in no later than the beginning of the legislative report. No forms will be accepted once this report has begun. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comments will be heard after the agenda review. Students will be the first to speak on any topic during the student voice portion of the agenda, which takes place immediately following the opening. General public comments from non-students will be heard during preliminary communication from the audience. Any remaining comments, whether from students or non-students, will be heard at specific agenda items and during final communication from the audience. Student comments will be the first heard on any topic. Please state your first and last name prior to beginning your testimony. Abuse of public comments personally directed towards the board, staff, or students will not be tolerated. The use of specific names or personally identifiable information of board, staff, or students is not allowed. Board members or KSD staff members may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when not adhering to Procedure 1420P. All comments, whether verbal or written, must adhere to the standards of civility as defined in the Policy 1400 Meeting Conduct, Order of Business, and Quorum. If you are seated in an overflow room, there is a brief delay in the live stream audio. We will allow extra time for you to make your way to the board room after your name is called. Individuals with items for the board or superintendent must provide them directly to our safety services staff. Approaching the dais during the board meeting is not allowed. Any items turned in will be provided to the board and superintendent following the meeting. We now move on to item 1.06. Director Song, will you please read our land acknowledgement?
We acknowledge we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, who historically lived throughout the area between the Cascade Mountains and the Puget Sound.
Thank you very much, Director Song. We now move to our agenda review. Superintendent Vela, are there any changes to the agenda?
President Margell, there are no changes to the agenda.
Is there a motion from the board?
Move to approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda as made. We are now open for discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as written, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. We now move to our student voice section. Is there any in-person comments?
President Margell, I'll check with Mrs. Zentenel. First, as you know, do we have any student comment?
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, and Ms. Curry. At this time, student comments have not been submitted. There were no submitted comments for student or otherwise online video or written. That said, since I'm here at the podium, I have received 2 forms for the comment section following this one. So I'll go ahead and hand those off to you at this time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zantello. Perfect. Thank you. We now move on to our next section, our recognition, and we're excited to start with Administrative Professionals Week from Director Gregory.
Whereas Administrative Professionals Week recognizes the many roles and responsibilities of the administrative professionals in our schools and district offices, and whereas the Kent School District Board of Directors acknowledges the critical role of administrative professionals to supporting the education of our students and ensuring that students are successfully prepared for their futures, and whereas administrative professionals work in the district school buildings, the transportation building, and the central administration campus, and whereas our administrative professionals are often the first impression and the face of the Kent School District to the thousands of parents, community members, and students that walk in the doors of our schools and offices or call on the telephone and therefore serve as key frontline public relations ambassadors, and whereas the school board recognizes the expertise and dedication of the district's administrative professionals, their work to master technology and effectively utilize communication skills, their vital contributions and commitment to teamwork, and their willingness to learn and accept new challenges and opportunities. And whereas the school board wishes to commend each and every one of the Kent School District's administrative professionals for their services to students, staff, parents, and community members each and every day. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District proclaims April 20th through 26th, 2025 Administrative Professionals Week and the Kent School District and urges all citizens to join in the observance.
Thank you very much, Director Gregory. I am now excited to be able to speak to National Public School Volunteer Week, something that I have been proud to do with, I'm sure, very many of our fellow board members up here. Whereas public school volunteers contribute unselfishly to the success of students, teachers, and support staff, and whereas school volunteers reflect the highest values of our democratic society by representing people of all ages and all walks of life, and whereas school volunteers stretch school and district resources to ensure that every student receives help and encouragement according to need, and whereas school volunteers exhibit care, model the best in citizenship, and create a climate that fosters learning and love of education. And whereas Public School Volunteer Week provides a yearly opportunity for schools and families to honor and highlight the powerful contribution parents and caregivers provide the school and home to support student success. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Kent School District recognizes April 21st through the 25th, 2025 as Public School Volunteer Week and in Kent School District, and urges all citizens to join us in remembering the dedication and hard work of local volunteers in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world. Signed this 23rd day of April 2025 by the Board of Directors and Israel Vela, Secretary to the Board. Our next proclamation is Vice President Cook, School Lunch Hero Day.
All right. Whereas nutritious meals are an essential part of the school day, and whereas the staff of the Kent School District's Nutrition Services Department are committed to providing healthful, nutritious meals to the district's children, and whereas the men and women who prepare and serve school meals help nurture our children through their interaction and support during meal distribution to students, and whereas the nutrition services staff are professionals who have risen above and beyond by helping to feed all children in our community, and now therefore, be it resolved that Kent School District expresses its deep appreciation to these valuable employees and commends their good work on behalf of children and proclaims Friday, May 2nd, 2025 as School Lunch Hero Day. Signed this 23rd day of April, 2025 by all of us.
Thank you, Vice President Cook. Our next proclamation and recognition is National Student Leadership Week by Director Song.
Whereas National Student Leadership Week is a theme-based week dedicated to recognizing and supporting the important role of student leaders. Since 1972, the National Office of the National Association of Student Councils, National Honor Society, and National Junior Honor Society have sponsored National Student Leadership Week. And whereas student leaders are a positive influence on their peers, modeling good character and scholarship in and out of the classroom, and serve as change agents to improve the overall climate and academic performance levels of their schools. And whereas the support of school administrators and faculty, parents, and community members is necessary to help student leaders develop the essential traits and characteristics of a leader and to provide positive experiences to expand their skills and ensure the successful education of all emerging student leaders. And whereas the National Student Leadership Week serves as an ideal time to recognize student leaders for their hard work, determination, and commitment to making a change in their schools, learning communities, and the world. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District recognize April 24th through the 30th, 2025 as National Student Leadership Week in Kent School District and urges all citizens to join in this observance.
Thank you very much, Director Song. Director Clark, could you read our proclamation for Teacher Appreciation Week?
I just want to say that this proclamation speaks to many basic truths, and that teachers are, of course, the heartbeat of what this public education agency is all about. Whereas the role of the classroom teacher cannot be overemphasized, for they are the single most influential factor in a child's educational experience. And whereas our teachers are at their best when they hold students to high expectations, challenge them to think critically, push them to excel in the face of any obstacle, and guide their development toward becoming contributing citizens. And whereas under the expert direction of our teachers, classrooms throughout Kent School District are places where students are given the opportunity to display creativity and imagination and develop a passion for learning that will last a lifetime. And whereas excellent teaching is a labor of love, and our dedicated professionals often use their own resources and work long hours to enhance and enrich the daily learning experiences of their students with innovation and individualized lessons. And whereas educators shape the future of our community and nation as they work each day to prepare our students to compete globally, and whereas the value of our talented, committed, tireless, and inspirational teachers is without measure. Now therefore be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors hereby proclaims May 5th through 9th, 2025 as Teacher Appreciation Week in the Kent School District, and urges all citizens to pay tribute to our public school teachers.
Thank you, Director Clark. And Director Gregory, you get to do double duty today. Thank you. National School Nurse Day, please.
Whereas all students have a right to their health needs safely met while in the school setting, and whereas children today face more complex and life-threatening health problems requiring care in school, and whereas school nurses and professional nurses that advance the well-being, academic success, and lifelong achievements of all of our students by providing a critical safety net for our nation's most fragile children, and whereas school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, parents, and healthcare providers on behalf of the child's health, and whereas school nurses support the health and educational success of children and youth by developing and providing programs and leadership, and whereas school nurses understand the link between health and learning and are in a position to make a positive difference for children every day. Now therefore be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors hereby proclaims May 7th, 2025 National School Nurse Day in the Kent School District and urges all citizens to join in the observance. Signed this 23rd day of April 2025 by Superintendent Vella and the Board of Directors for the Kent School District.
Thank you, Director Gregory. We now move on to our public comments. We have 2 in-person general comments. Our first speaker tonight, Caitlin Tin.
Good evening, board members. My name is Caitlin Tin, and I want to begin with a simple truth. When systems fail children's, it's not just a policy problem, it's a moral one. I'm here as an advocate for a 4th grade student in the Kent School District who has been effectively expelled from her non-public agency placement since February 20th. She has PDA autism, a profile marked by a strong sense of justice and oppositional behavior. These are not discipline problems. They are traits of a well-documented neurodevelopmental condition, and she needs support, not exclusion. Instead, this student has been denied her legal right to a free and appropriate public education under the oversight of the Director of Inclusive Education Services. I asked this board, why was Ms. Larson hired despite a history in the Clover Park School District that included multi-million-dollar lawsuit settlements?
Ms. Tin, I'm going to have to interrupt you. Part of our procedure is that we don't give personally identifiable information. You're welcome to share information.
Okay.
And please do. But anything that is specific to a person, staff, board, student, we encourage you to leave that out.
Okay. Since supporting this family, my team and I have experienced consistent obstruction and evasion. Here are just a few examples. We were told that VIPS-approved adults can't support students one-on-one and must only serve in a group setting. Requests to correct paperwork with accurate dates were denied without explanation. Repeated efforts to secure any form of curriculum while this student is out of school has been met with many excuses as it's in a warehouse, it's not appropriate, or simply silence. This student is still with no curriculum or education. We've been told we need another meeting again and again with no purpose or intent defined. Program within a program, an interim programming solution, was dismissed as ineffective for 98% of students, but no data was ever provided. We've been removed from communication despite a valid ROI, and no policy justifying has been shared. We've been told meetings can't be recorded because of KSD policy, but that policy has never been provided. We've been told that responses come in 48 hours, yet no policies confirming this has ever materialized. Board members, you may not have been elected by these students, but you chose to serve them. This means showing up when it's hard, not just when it's easy. These are children. Their education is not just a line item, it's a lifeline. If leadership won't protect their rights, then the duty falls to you, because silence makes you complicit, and accountability starts at the top. I'm not just raising concerns, I'm asking for your support. Review these leadership decisions, demand transparency, and take action to restore the students' access to education. Let's make this right, not just for her, but for every family who feels unheard in a system that's meant to serve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Liggett.
I'm Jennifer Liggett. I'm the parent of a fourth grade KSD student who has been expelled from her MPA since 11 a.m. on February 20th. My daughter has PDA autism, which presents as autism with a strong justice-seeking drive and oppositional defiance. Because a director of inclusive education services blatantly denies my daughter her right to free and appropriate public education, she remains without access. I must ask this board, why would you hire someone and even offer them a promotion when at their previous position they were involved in multiple lawsuits with millions of dollars awarded to students? And she denied services to them. Public records show she requested to exit Clover Park with dignity following these legal losses just to be immediately hired within KSD. Let me be clear, if this district is in the business of gaslighting parents, denying FAPE, promoting staff who lie or fabricate quotes, refusing to cite sources, which by the way you require of students, and expelling students based on solely their disability, you are succeeding. I'm here today not only for my daughter, but for every family in this district. If you recall, I and another parent, Meg Heron, helped organize the delivery of over 10,000 meals during the KSD strike in 2022 when Nutrition Services team did not. I represent hundreds of community voices who see what is happening and demanding something be done. KSD oversees the education of more than 25,000 students, with about 13% receiving inclusive education services. Superintendent Vela, why have I yet to receive a response to the numerous emails I have sent you, the board, and other leadership, including HR, pleading for urgent help? Inclusive education should provide tailored services to meet the needs of students with disabilities to ensure FAPE. I can say unequivocally that this has not been my family or my daughter's experience. My daughter, sitting in the back, is not a statistic or a string of letters in an email. She's a human, she's bright, creative, amazing, and the only reason she's not in school is because a specific director has denied her access to any interim support while awaiting NPA placement. And Superintendent Vela, because this silence allows this to continue, it's not an oversight, I view it as systemic failure. I've submitted policy-related questions to a director concerning FAPE. She quoted policies and procedures but refuses to source and cite them. While I have responded promptly, she has not, but yet quotes that there's a 48-hour policy within KSD and she is failing on that policy she is misquoting. What's happening to my daughter is not an isolated case, it's an embodiment of the school-to-prison pipeline in action. Key contributions and contributors in this situation include disproportionate discipline, early police involvement, implicit bias, lack of support for students with disabilities, unaddressed trauma, withheld special education services, and long-term behavioral tracking. These are all recognized drivers of the school-to-prison pipeline that my daughter has experienced through KSD. She's been expelled for over 2 months solely because of her disability, proven through an MDR. The support was available and ready to go, yet a specific director actively blocked her from continuing her education at Cedar Valley. This is failing my student, and it's feeding a system that harms them. Without intervention, this pattern puts children on a path to incarceration, not education. But my daughter is fortunate she has a mother who will never stop advocating for her. She was once a high cap approved student in 2nd grade. She's regressing now academically, socially, and emotionally because this district allowed her an expulsion directly due to her disability. To this board, the over 25,000 students that you represent did not elect you, you chose to serve them. So please, I beg of you, do better, not just for my child, but for every child who deserves an education, dignity, zero barriers, and a future of faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liggett. We now move on to our superintendent report.
Thank you, President Margell. Tonight, I want to update the board on a number of things. First of all, we've had spring break, as you know. We've had some school visits. I want to give you also some fiscal updates, things that are happening around the state, as well as we focus on student voice continually, I want to share a little bit more around student voice, and then some shout outs to round my report today. The first, just before spring break, Dr. Berenger and I were invited to Martin Sortune. It was the first elementary school in Washington State named a Special Olympics National Unified Champion School for their inclusion efforts. I had the opportunity to read a proclamation from the city of Kent, and thank you to Principal Barber and the Martin Sortune staff, and especially physical education teacher Marla Taylor, who has been an inspiration and an advocate for each and every student at Martin Sortune. Thank you to her efforts. I also had the opportunity to visit Scenic Hill Elementary, where I had the opportunity to share my story that I wrote. I'm not going to give you the year. It was well early on in my teaching career that I wrote along with my 5th grade students. And that story is titled The Road to Now. And I received a book version that's bound. I'm going to pass it down and have you just take a look at it. I received a book version from her classroom, and it was just wonderful. The title of this book is titled El Camino que no termina, the road that doesn't end. That was their title, which mine was a little different, but very similar. It is a compilation of the stories from her dual language classroom and their goals. They're written in Spanish, and I think you can probably tell some of those out as you take a glance at it. I just want to thank them for sharing this book and thank them for the invitation, and I look forward to hopefully visiting with one or more of the board members to her classroom in the future and thank them personally. Around state funding, as I mentioned, I continue to focus on fiscal responsibility. I want to extend my sincere thank you again to the board, in particular Board President Margell and our Kent Educators Association President, Mr. Tim Martin, for their leadership and partnership in jointly signing a powerful letter to our state legislators. Their united voice underscores the urgent reality we face. Current state funding levels fall short, far short, of what is needed to meet even the most basic educational standards. Together as leaders of the Kent School Board, District Administration, and the Kent Education Association, we are calling on the legislature to act boldly and equitably. Public education funding must become a top priority, not just in statements, but through meaningful investment that truly supports our students and secures the future of Washington State. We urge lawmakers to take immediate action on these critical issues to ensure that every student receives the quality education they deserve. I want to thank Dr. Berenger for hosting the first middle school student advisory group, and this was on April 22nd. I'm told it was lively, participation was great, and engagement was amazing, according to Dr. Behringer. I look forward to hearing more about that and reporting more to our board. I want to also thank our athletic and activities director, Mr. Brian Smith, for leading the recent student-athlete leadership team meeting. This important gathering centered on elevating student voice, vision, and action in addressing and preventing discriminatory behaviors. Engaging our student leaders in these conversations is a critical step toward fostering a more inclusive and respectful environment across all our schools and athletic programs. Some shout outs. The first, we held HR, our student teacher night. Proud to share that as I said, the human resources team, they hosted a student teacher night. It's an event focused on supporting the next generation of educators. We had 22 aspiring teachers participate in mock interviews and receive personalized feedback to help prepare them for successful careers in education. Events like these reflect our district's commitment to growing future talent and investing in strong pipeline of educators who may one day serve in the Kent School District. Our Washington State Dance and Drill Coach of the Year, it's Lori Stevens. She's the dance coach at Meridian and Matson Middle School, so shout out to her. Kent Elementary School is being recognized this year for its outstanding commitment to sustainability, earning 4 benchmark achievements. The first, waste reduction, recycling collection, organic collection, and food waste reduction. The school will be honored with recognition badges and a Green Schools banner to celebrate these accomplishments. Congratulations to Kent Elementary and their community for leading by example and demonstrating environmental stewardship in action. I also wanted to share some important dates for our community and our board. The first is our annual multicultural event at KM this Friday, April 25th. I know last year, I believe Vice President Cook and Director Song, if I remember correctly, we attended, and it was just outstanding. So I invite all, I believe it's 12:30 to 2 o'clock, I believe. Graduation ceremonies are around the corner, as you know. This year, graduations will take place over 2 days. The first is on Friday, June 13th, and the next is on Saturday, June 14th. We have iGrad and Kent Virtual Academy, Friday, June 13th, at Kent Meridian High School. Kent Laboratory Academy also on the 13th at 7 p.m. 5 p.m. is the first. And then we have our Saturday, the 14th, starting with Kent Lake at 8:30 a.m., Kentridge, 12:30, Kentwood, 4:30 p.m., and finally with Kent Meridian High School at 8 p.m., and that is all at the Shower Center. I also wanted to give a shout out to and an invitation to all the drama productions that are happening this spring. April 30th through May 10th, from Wednesday through Saturday, I believe, 7 p.m., with a Saturday matinee at 2 p.m., I believe. Tickets are available on gofan.com or at the door, just so you know, and that's Hairspray at Kentridge. At Kentwood High School, we have Legally Blonde, the musical, on May 7th through the 17th, 7 p.m., matinee at 2 p.m. on the 17th, which is a Saturday. Again, same purchase for tickets, gofan.com and or at the door. Kent Lake High School, Little Shop of Horrors, 15th to the 25th of May, 7 p.m. with a matinee that Saturday at 2 p.m. Again, the same on the tickets. And then finally, Kent Meridian High School, Macbeth. That's May 16th through the 17th, 7 p.m. Tickets are available online, again, gofan.com. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Vela. We now move to our legislative update. At this time, all remaining comment cards need to be turned into the blue box over at the side back of our room. Seeing none, Director Clark.
Well, we are down to the final days of the regular legislative session. May I have the next one, please? So Governor Ferguson did in fact reject the $12 billion tax plan that the legislature spit towards his desk. And he made the comment in that rejection about talking about what he saw as the picture. And specifically, he did state something that may surprise some people, and that's that federal money is 28% of state revenue. Now, I'm going to present this to you in two different examples so you can kind of see the snowball coming. I'm going to use public health. And public health, of course, at the federal level is going under dramatic change. And the impact of that would come back here in King County because, of course, King County handles the public health in this county. It is the most populous of all the counties. And, by the way, King County is running a deficit at this point. So the impacts are going to show up. It's just a matter of time. And when they do, the legislative body will have to step forward to deal with that. But if they're running a deficit, the question becomes, then what other cuts can they make? Now, the reason I mention that is, let's take special ed. So special ed was created as a category by the federal government. And in fact, they committed to making 40% of the funding for that. Of course, the point being is special ed, as it's run in this state then, becomes a state legislative body that has a pool of money, but not nearly enough to handle what they have to do. And so, in effect, you can see that the Department of Education is critical to the funding coming towards education in this state. All right, when the governor basically rejected that given tax plan, the question becomes then, what is the state going to do? And so we head into negotiations. And the question, of course, is we have all these ongoing needs. Most of those are, of course, constant, and the only question is what is the caseload for the given department and what they do with it. So without that big overall tax increase that they were hoping to lay on the rich, they now have to distribute those revenue sources. So among the details they tossed up is an increase in the B&O. I always mention the business and occupation tax because it always makes me laugh. It's just a tragedy because it was originally created back in the Great Depression because they couldn't get a progressive income tax. But of course, over time, needing money, each party, when they came into power, made their own little adjustments until we're finally down to that point where nobody owns it, nobody likes it, and they don't know what to do about it. All right, the capital gains tax is still there. And for those of you that are worried about what impact that would be, you have to have over $1 million into the market to even be counted. And then, unfortunately, they are going to apply a sales tax on more services. That will show up. And there will be shifts on the property tax, which nobody wants to hear. All right, next slide. All right, so what are the specific education funding issues that we're facing? And of course, all that I'm talking about here is increases. There is what they've done in the past. And of course, as you know, we have been lobbying to try and fix the funding gap that has shown up in every school district in this state. So the Senate proposed, now remember, they have to have a long-term plan. Their special ed proposal was for $2.2 billion over 4 years, and their MSOC, material supplies and others, $400 million over 4 years. The House, unfortunately, looked at it and said there isn't enough revenue, and so they amended that, and that began to look like special ed would get $200 million, that's for the next school year, but MSOC would get nothing more. So you're stuck with the deficit you've been running, and it's not going to go away. All right. Well, then there became another problem. So the Senate specifically had a special ed bill 5263, where they were trying to actually address the specific concerns, particularly in this district that we've had, and that's that there is a cap on how many students you can count in the special ed category, which has nothing to do with how many of them are you actually serving. So they, in fact, were going to remove that 16% cap, and they were going to put in $245 million on special ed for next year. But the House, again struggling with revenue and what to do about that, amends that, and now the Senate had offered $77.49 per student as reimbursement in special ed, but the House dropped that to $35.27 per student. And then if that wasn't enough, there's the apportionment that they put in. Now, you understand that they have to forward a balanced budget, and it's a 2-year process. So they can make amendments next year, but the 2-year process is supposed to balance between projected revenues and projected expenses. So unfortunately, they came up with an apportionment shift. That's House Bill 2050. And what it would do is reduce the February and March payments and move the remaining reimbursement coming from the state to July or August. Now, if that doesn't make sense for you, remember, it's a 2-year plan. And so if you just think about it, you realize that next year, as they're looking at what are we going to do, if they can shove off part of the money into the following year, they can then deal with that after the next election and the beginning of a new biennium. But what's the impact? And you can probably guess. February and March are the time when school districts are at their low ebb in terms of commitment of money. And so, in effect, what's going on is you are asking the school districts to try and cover the state shortfall from whatever is left when they already handed you a budget deficit to begin with. So I'm not going to pretend this is not a pretty picture, and I also am going to ask that obvious question. Do you really think they're going to get out at the end of the month? Because I don't. Thank you.
Always uplifting. I do have to say, I say that tongue in cheek, but I very much appreciate that you walk us through this and make sure that it is understood just the gravity of these decisions that are being made at the state level and the impact that they have on our students every day. We now move on to our discussion and approval. Section 7.0. Is there a motion to be made? Well, I'm in the whole section, yes. So.
I move to approve. I move to approve item 7.01, gifts, donations, and/or memorials acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We're now open for discussion.
I'd just like to comment on the generous support from our supporters of public education in this district. Kent Meridian got from Circus Tricks Holding LLC Sky Zone $713 for a student memorial project in honor of 2 former students. Matson Middle School got $600 from their PTSA for transportation for 7th grade study class field trip. Meridian Middle School, the Dazzler Dance Team Boosters gave $748 for dance team expenses. Kent Lake High School from Genders and Sexualities Alliance Network got $500 for unrestricted support for the Kent Lake Gay Straight Alliance Club expenses. Kentridge Booster Club Volleyball got $928 for varsity volleyball jersey sets. Kentridge Booster Club girls basketball sent $600 for shooting shirts for that team. Kentridge Booster Club boys soccer actually literally got bench coats for the soccer team to the tune of $662. Kentridge Booster Club Wrestling raised $6,300 to support wrestling tournaments and purchase of a new mat. Kentridge Booster Club Band, $15,270 were raised for the jazz band expenses to Montana with transportation and lodging expenses. Kentridge Booster Club Backboard, $945 for shooting shirts for the boys basketball. And Kent Judo Association sent $500 to support judo club activities and programming at Kentridge. Covington Elementary, the PTA sent $2,469 for teachers' needs to that school. And we thank all of them for their generous support.
Thank you for all of that generous support. We have had a motion and it has been seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing as none, there's been a motion made and seconded for approval of 7.01 gifts, donations, and/or memorials acceptance. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion?
I move 702, reading and adoption of policy 2124, physical education and health class for approval.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded for approval of item 7.02, second reading and adoption of policy 2124, physical education and health class. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as none, a motion has been made for approval of 7.02, second reading and adoption of policy 2124, physical education and health class. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0.
I make a motion to approve 7.03, second reading and adoption of policy 2163, multi-tiered systems of support.
I second.
A motion has been made and seconded for approval of item 7.03, second reading and adoption of policy 2163, multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as none, a motion has been made and seconded for approval of 7.03, second reading and adoption of policy 2163, multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0.
I make a motion to approve second reading and approval of policy 2190, highly capability program.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for item 7.04, second reading and approval of policy 2190, highly capable programs. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as none, a motion's been made and seconded for approval of 7.04, second reading and approval of policy 2190, highly capable programs. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 7.05, second reading and adoption of policy 2195, academic acceleration.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded for approval of 7.05, second reading and adoption of policy 2195, academic acceleration. We're now open for discussion. Seeing as none, a motion has been made and seconded for approval of 7.05, second reading and adoption of policy 2195, academic acceleration. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion?
I move 706, second reading and approval of policy 2255, alternative learning experience courses.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 7.06, second reading and approval of policy 2255, alternative learning experience courses, ALE. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as none, there's been a motion made and seconded for approval of item 7.06, second reading and approval of policy 2255, alternative learning experience courses, ALE. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0.
I make a motion to approve 7.07, third reading and approval of policy 5050, contracts.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded for the approval of item 7.07, third reading and approval of policy 5050, contracts. We are now open for discussion. We will start discussion with a public comment. Our public comment is from Greta Nelson.
Good evening, Kent School Board and community members. I oppose the final version of Board Policy 5050 that is on the agenda for a vote today, and it urged two changes: the reinstatement of a consultant compensation cap and a requirement for board approval for all consultant contracts. These revisions are necessary to prevent conflicts of interest such as consultant Dr. Larry Nyland's dual roles of advising the superintendent on strategic operations and his professional development and relationship with the board, in addition to his role advising the board on how to evaluate the superintendent, which is a direct conflict of interest causing bias. The revisions will also ensure fiscal accountability and restore trust amid an active OPMA lawsuit where Dr. Nyland and his conflicted consultant dual roles are at the core of the litigation claims made. First, eliminating the compensation cap, which previously limited consultant pay to comparable staff salaries, invites excessive spending. Nyland's unapproved hiring by the superintendent for strategic operations and professional development without a contract was followed by an unapproved contract to advise the board on how to evaluate the superintendent. This dual role creates a conflict. Nyland's coaching directly influences the superintendent's performance in board evaluations, compromising impartiality. A cap would force transparent justification for high fees, prioritizing funds for students. At the February 12 work session, there was a discussion between two directors that resulted in a proposal of a $25,000 threshold. Yet the final policy lacks this safeguard, risking unchecked costs and lack of oversight of the superintendent and consultant contracts. Second, Board Policy 5050's board approval requirement for specific contracts is too vague. Nyland's initial hiring bypassed the board, which reveals a policy gap. The OPMA lawsuit alleges improper closed sessions with Nyland, further eroding trust. At the February 12 work session, a director stressed that all outside commitments need board approval, but the policy only mandates it for contracts with stipulated amounts that are not defined in the policy. Explicit language requiring board approval for all consultant contracts would prevent unauthorized hires and ensure oversight, addressing community concerns about secretive processes. The final Board Policy 5050 prioritizes flexibility over accountability. It ignores directors' calls for clear oversight and fails to address situations like Dr. Nyland's conflicted roles and contract procurement violations of the district. Superintendent's evaluation success is a direct reflection of Nyland's coaching, which undermines fair governance. I urge the board to revise Board Policy 5050 to reinstate a compensation cap and mandating board approval for all consultant contracts to ensure fiscal responsibility and transparency to the public. Our students and taxpayers deserve better. Thank you.
Any discussion from the board?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on this one. First off, what is the purpose of us not using WASDA's model policy?
So I'll have, just a reminder to the board, this is the third reading. I'll have Ms. Hawley come up to answer that question.
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, and Ms. Curry. I need to look it up. I know that we added language in after Director Clark wanted some clarification on the consultant contracts or any additional contracts, but that's one thing that's different for sure from WASDA's. But I need to look up and tell you exactly what it is, and I can do that and get back to you in just a moment if you guys would like to wait a moment.
The part, like I looked up the section, at least for that you're speaking to, there might be others in amongst this. But that one, the part that was removed states, the superintendent or designee will determine compensation, but normally, compensation may not exceed that paid to a regular staff member with comparable duties. What's the purpose of removing that?
I think what it was that we were talking about agency hires is what this was referring to. Right. Mm-hmm. And this is different. The consultant contracts are different than that. Mm-hmm. And I believe that when we were discussing it, this line was about agency hire. So the agency hire wouldn't be paid at a higher rate than our normal employees.
But wouldn't that just require us to review it then at that point?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Wouldn't that just require the board to approve that? We'd have to have it come to us and we'd discuss it and then approve it?
The consultant part would, but we have threshold limits on any of our contracts. Now, HR deals with the agency contracts. They don't normally come before the board.
I see.
I mean, individuals, I should say.
And if I may, the agency staff, recall that's for positions that we don't have staff for, and we must put them due to contract, and so agency staff would be different.
I'm sorry, can you just clarify that part for me? So is our language, was the language that was suggested here or that was pulled out, that was for a different type of?
I believe the way the board had talked about it is we wanted to make sure there was clarity between agency staff and actual consultant contracts, which would come to the board at a certain threshold anyway. That's why we added that actual language in about if required by law or board policy, because we have thresholds for all of our contracts where the board then must approve.
And that's what I recall from the last conversation that we had about this as well. Are we going to add that board policy into this as well so that we can reference what that threshold was?
Into the contracts policy?
Yes.
I didn't believe we were going to do that. We've covered it by saying by policy or law.
Would we be able to add it to the, like kind of in a section similar to the legal references section?
We could
where-
definitely cross-reference it, for sure.
Cross-reference those
Yeah, we could
policies
do
so
that.
Just for
it's easy.
clarity, Director Song, it's in the reference, the legal reference piece is what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah,
Yes.
sure, we can put it there.
Okay.
But again, distinction between the two.
Yes.
Director Clark
Yes.
was his question.
Can I clarify with the board? If we add that reference into, since it's not a substantial change to the document as itself, do we feel like that needs to go for another reading? Or is that not a substantial change enough? We've done this before. If it's similar to what it is, we can move it forward.
Can we amend it without having to like know what it is? Are we able to
Sure,
just
I'll
say we
just-
want to amend it with this and just push it through? that?
I'll
Like-
let you know
like-
that reference will be in
Yeah.
there.
What that specific one is, yeah.
Yes.
Did you have one?
I believe it's
No,
6220, purchasing and contracts.
Okay.
That'll solve it, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some other questions. So in the section, so I'm looking at the final draft of it, and the section where it says leave replacement employees and retire rehire employees, the wording is all over the place here. I'd assumed that it would be cleaned up, but it's like it says under leave replacement employees, contracts with persons replacing certificated staff on leave do not have continuing contract rights. Accordingly, retire, rehire, which we've actually separated them, so it doesn't make sense that it's added in there for that section, and leave replacement contracts will include the following language. And then it states the language that was there previously. When you go further down into the retire, rehire section, it again speaks to leave replacement employees when that is already addressed in the section above. I'm not sure why those were left in, but it concerns me a little bit because to me that indicates that maybe we missed something else. And so I personally would like to just have have it rewritten so that this is written out the way that it should be, so that we can then discuss it and then approve it at that point. I don't know how the rest of the board feels on that.
I see the red lines, and so I want to see,
They were together before, so leave replacement employees and retire rehire employees
Yep.
were part of the same paragraph before, and now they've been separated, but they're both included in both paragraphs.
Like, are you just saying that they're redundant?
Yeah, well, each of them are, but if we're separating them out, I would imagine that there's a reason. Like
I
if
can
we're-
check with our HR staff that made the suggestion to split those out and
Yeah.
see what the thinking is behind
Yeah, the
that.
thinking is that there are two different types of position. Leave replacement can come in with a certificate that they're not a retire rehire.
Oh, I'm not-
Retire
I'm not-
rehire that's why they were split.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that they should be separated or not. It's just that the wording in both of them, like they're redundant, and because we've separated them, to me, that means there's a purpose for it. But if you're saying like retire, rehire, and leave replacement contracts in both paragraphs, it
I get
says
what you're
both of those.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and that just concerns me, because if we're missing that one, are there others? Because I didn't, go through this with a fine tooth comb. But I did notice that, as well as the part that we removed, which, may not exceed that paid to a regular staff member with comparable duties. I don't know how that applies to our, like, the other contracts that you're talking about for the agency contracts, because this is talking about consultants specifically. Do our contracts with our agencies, do those apply to consultants, or are consultants a separate entity than our agencies?
Consultants are definitely separate from agency.
Okay, because that section is only speaking about consultants, so I just don't know why we would remove that when it's part of the model policy from WASDA, and it's the only part that we removed.
Why don't we take it back? Sounds like there are too many questions to put this one forward.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Do you want us to?
There is.
I make a motion to,
I mean, we could table
Put
it,
it
but they
back.
don't like
Yeah.
tabling it.
Okay, put back
table it
to
for
a
a
work
fourth
session,
reading?
how about put into a fourth reading?
yeah.
Yes.
Or additional work session, maybe?
Which one's more
So I
accurate?
believe, if I may, Mr. Leonard, usually the
we
protocol is to
voted
vote
down
on,
first.
vote on what's on the table.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then you would redo,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
All right.
Mr. Leonard.
There are a couple of options. Probably the cleanest one is just to vote it down. You have a pending motion, so just vote it down and you can bring it back.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you for that. So we have a motion on the floor for item 7.07, third reading and approval of policy 50/50 contracts. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. All those against, please raise your right hand and say nay.
Nay.
Nay. The motion fails 0 to 5.
I make a motion to
I don't
move.
believe we need to do that.
Oh, we don't have to
Mr.
do it
Leonard.
anymore?
No.
No.
No,
We
we just
just
voted it
simply
down.
go back for
But
fourth
thank you,
reading.
though.
So we don't have to do it to schedule for the next one? Oh,
No.
never
It'll just
mind.
automatically go.
Because we
I'll do
just,
it.
we voted it down,
Okay.
so it's gone now.
But you could make a motion for a consent agenda.
I did want to pull some things first, though.
Okay.
I'll
Does
let you
anyone
go
else?
then. No, go for it then.
Okay. I wanted to pull 8.04, 8.09, and 8.13.
Anything else?
No. Anyone else?
You have to make a motion.
Yeah, okay. I move to approve item number 8.01 through 8.15, minus the items 8.04, 8.09, and 8.13.
I'm sorry, wait, I don't have items 8.14 or 8.15. You said through 8.15?
Are they on the next page?
I only have 8.13.
Yeah.
I don't have that page. Give me just one moment. I'm
Oh,
sure it's
Sorry,
there.
I always
No,
look
no,
at
you're
the
right.
online
It's
thing.
on the online.
Oh.
Yep. Okay,
Sorry,
thank
got
you,
cut
sorry about that. Could you restate your motion, please, so I have it documented?
Yeah, no problem. I move to approve items 8.101 through 8.15, accepting 8.04, 8.09, and 8.13.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion's been made to approve consent agenda items 8.01 through 8.15, with the exception of items 8.04, 8.09, and 8.13. We are now open for discussion. Seeing none, a motion's been made to approve consent agenda items 8.01 through 8.15, with the exception of items 8.04 through approve consent agenda items 8.01 through 8.15, with the exception of items 8.04, 8.09, and 8.13. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve item 8.04, nutrition services, purchase of rethermalizer oven replacements.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.04, nutrition services, purchase of rethermalizer oven replacements. We are now open for discussion. I think you just wanted me to say rethermalizers.
That might be it, I don't know. So I just was wondering, I was looking at the contract here, and I don't see multiple bids, and this seems like a dollar amount that we would require multiple bids, so I was just wondering if there were multiple bids and we're just not seeing them, or what's going on there?
I asked the same question during review of this, and that's part of our purchasing group that we have where we get some of our best pricing through that group.
I see. Does that apply, that's my same question on 8.09. As far as I could tell, there wasn't, and like, I don't know that like a car dealership would have that sort of authorization, but maybe I'm wrong.
The information I have is just on 8.04, but we can absolutely ask when we get to 8.09.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are you good with the answer
Yeah,
for,
I'm good.
okay. Seeing, is there any further discussion on 8.04? Seeing none, there's been a motion made to approve, and this has been seconded for 8.04, nutrition services purchase of rethermalizer oven replacements. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. The motion passes 5-0.
I move to approve item 8.09, safety services vehicle purchase order.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded for approval of item 8.09, safety services vehicle purchase order. I believe that we have a question on the floor about multiple bids.
Can you, is it the same question?
Yeah, it's the same
Okay.
question.
I'll have Mr. Kovich come up.
President Markell, board directors, Israel. Ms. Curry, sorry, you caught me off guard. It is also a state contracting thing through the enterprise purchasing, and it's awarded to that agency.
Oh, okay. So we purchase through another agency, but they use whichever one they find or what have you? Is that kind of an idea of how that works?
So the dealership for Ford that we are purchasing this through has been awarded through the state enterprise contracting.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
they won the bid.
Yeah, I was just confused because I was like, that's a normal dealership, like.
Correct.
So that makes sense though. Thank you, I appreciate you.
Thank you,
explaining
Mr.
it.
Kovich.
Any further questions from the board? Great. Seeing no further questions, a motion has been made and seconded for approval of item 8.09, safety services vehicle purchase order. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve item 8.13 vouchers.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.13 vouchers. We are now open for discussion.
I wanted to be able to abstain from voting on this particular item and didn't want to impact the rest of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Seeing no further discussion, we have a motion on the floor to approve item 8.13 vouchers that has been seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against, say nay. All those that choose to abstain.
Abstain.
We have 4 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. The motion passes. We now move on to our informational items. They are there, and the attachments are online. I'm going to just take a hot second and look. Yep, all of them are online and for your perusal. We are now to final communication from the audience. I believe that we have taken care of any of the comments that were submitted to the blue box during the initial comment section and our individual section. We are now to 10.02, board reports and discussion. We will start with Director Gregory.
Thank you, President Markell. I have been busy the last few weeks. We did have spring break, and I hope everybody enjoyed their time away from the office. But this week, I think it was last week, I was welcomed out at the 4 high schools. We've had a lot of community engagement from our students talking about bathrooms around the district, and we had the opportunity to go out and see them in person. And then we also had a working session this evening to talk about those. So I wanted to say thank you to the district and the team for setting that up and for also allowing us to go out and see all of the students and classes. It was a good experience for all of us.
Thank you, Director Gregory. Director Song.
Yeah, just also wanted to validate and commemorate the efforts from the principals from the high schools. I think it's great that we had students who felt confident and promoted enough to come and speak out and advocate about the issues that they're facing in their schools related to the bathrooms. Hearing about a lot of the great work that's taking place right now, I think is very meaningful and inspiring. Even though we don't have all solutions figured out at this time, I think just even being 1% moving forward is a great indication of where their efforts are leading. So, thank you.
Thank you, Director Song. Director Clark.
I also participated in visits to Kent Lake and Kentwood on this same topic, and I agree with Director Song that the principals are clearly interconnected in discussing the unique problems of their particular buildings, because there's a wide variance in age and therefore the outlay of the buildings, and the recognition that a basic problem is that if we have a problem in the restroom, the question becomes, why aren't they in class? And absenteeism is being fundamental in our approach of what we're trying to do, because they're there to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Clark. Vice President Cook.
I'll reiterate what they said. I'm not going to continue it, though. I don't need to, belabor the point. Outside of that, I've also, I joined our meeting virtually, and I apologize if there was any difficulty for anyone, if they were watching or anyone here while I was virtual. But I appreciate all the work that was done to make sure that I was able to do so. That was very nice. Outside of that, I also went to camp last week and this week, not for the whole time. I just went for one day, both Wednesday last week and Wednesday this week. Last week, just because my wife was there. And so I went and said hi, and just to see how things were going. This week I went because they had a little bit of a last minute change. And so they had an additional school join them for the day today. And so it was a little bit more chaotic than normal. And I just want to say the entire staff at the camp, as well as all the staff from KSD, all did wonderfully. It was, I wouldn't have even known that there was any difference between last week and this week as far as how things went or anything like that. The kids all seemed super engaged. They seemed to enjoy it. I was sad that the school that didn't get the full 3 days experience didn't get that, but I heard that an additional 20 students ended up joining because of the fact that they didn't have to stay overnight. And so I hope that maybe the board can look at approving additional funding to provide buses or something so that we can do that for more of our students, because I know the overnight stay is a barrier for some students, parents who are not comfortable with that for whatever their reason might be. And I think it would be really good for us to move in a direction that would support them and really work on that equity piece for that. I know it's expensive, but hopefully we can do that. Other than that, I want to say, camp has been awesome. Like, it is so much better than last year. Last year I was constantly getting, messages and emails and texts and everything else about, why aren't we able to get to camp? Why aren't we able to get to camp? Or we don't have enough chaperones. We don't have enough mentors. This year, none of that has happened. And I just want to, congratulate the entire staff here that they are doing an awesome job. And anytime I'm not hearing anything from the community, I think it's a total win. And so across the board, I just want to thank everyone for that. Other than that, I'm looking forward to graduations and stuff, although it's a long day, but it'll be good.
Thank you, Vice President Cook. During the break, I was able to go with my husband and my son to Boston and stand in the place of the Boston Public Latin School, which, just to put it out there, is the first public school in America. It was built there in 1635, and it is not by happen chance that we're our first public school, and the commitment of dollars to educating our students is also the city where the revolution of the United States to really make us the country that we are today happen. The building blocks and the freedoms that we enjoy as a country are built on having quality, free public education. I say this because we have heard very much our funding and just encourage people to come out loud and proud for the importance of quality, free public education. You cannot
live in a free society without having great public schools. If you want to talk about the most important thing that you can fund, I have no doubt that as the primary responsibility of our state legislature is to fund our public schools. So I encourage, as we see the waning moments of this legislature, which probably still won't end on time, or at least this session of it, that we talk about the importance of fully funding our public education. I also encourage you to go to Boston. It's really cool. Great history, learning about why the revolution happened. I also want to take a moment. I hate spending our time focusing on adult problems and not focusing on kids. This is why we do it. This is why we're here. But I do find it necessary because this was brought up in a past session on the dais. It is the use of our public funds. That there was a unequivocal decision from the Chief Justice Scott about that dismissing each allegation of a recent recall petition against 2 of our board members. Each item was discussed at length by the Chief Judge Scott in his decision, lacking legal and factual sufficiency. We hope that this ends the matter and any continued cost that is being bared by our community and the district. With that, it is 7:41. I thank our students. You are the reason we are here every day, and have a good evening.